welcome back to the Airing Out podcast. I hope you're doing well. We've still got these horrible squeaky farty chairs, which are doing us absolutely no favours whatsoever on the audio. So if you're listening, I promise it's the chairs. So today I thought we'd have a little bit of an insightful one, or something that we haven't quite done yet with the podcast. Today I wanted to look at the things that I needed to hear when I was at my worst. And these are the things... I want to say beforehand that there are those who did tell me these things, and for whatever reason, because of how I was, because of where I was, I might not have heard them. So they might have told me these things which I'm about to tell you and share with you when I did need to hear them, but they didn't necessarily sink in. And I know you might be thinking, well, what's the point then? Why, if it didn't work for you I get that, I understand that, but please know that since that time, those things which people did tell me, they've sunk in, they've stuck with me, and they are pillars in how I have treated myself and the attitudes that I've had moving forward. So they were seeds that were planted, and I recognise those lessons, and I recognise the people who told me them. So please don't think that it's all for nothing. Yeah, they have a long-lasting effect. So the objective of this episode is to have a two-pronged attack. The first being that if you're in that place, if you feel anything like I did, or if you're just in a terrible, horrible space, then hopefully this can be something for you to hear and to recognise that might be able to improve how you feel. It might be able to provide you with a bit of a light in the darkness. That is my ultimate goal. That would be fantastic if it did. Yeah, and in the hopes that in sharing this today, it can do for you what it did for me back then. The other prong to this two-pronged attack is for those who aren't necessarily going through it, but might know somebody who is, or you want to arm yourself against it if it does ever arise in your life. Having that information, having that knowledge and that insight to that experience, those are what we can do to be proactive in mental health and recognising what the signs are and offering that support to somebody. Yeah, I think it's just as important to know for somebody else as it is to know for yourself. Because if you're that person and you want so desperately to help somebody, but you don't know how, you don't know what to say, you don't know how to get through to them, and it can be a terrible feeling. I'm sure my mum and dad know firsthand what it is to not be able to reach somebody. And what we're trying to do today is help prevent that. Number one, memory is selective. Don't idealise a time in your life where things seemed perfect or things seem great. Don't let there be a time in your life where you look back and think, that's where I want to be again, but I'm not there now. Things are all going shit. This is when things were good. Because not all that glitters is gold. If you took a bit of time to think back to that, you'll probably recognise that although there were good times, there were probably just as many bad times. But those bad times aren't what our memory holds on to. So it picks the good bits and it makes you think that this thing which you know is the best that things were or things that could ever be. That isn't true. Things can not only get better, but you can make a better version of yourself than you were before. Imagine that. And don't sacrifice your present to mourn a time that has passed. Don't give up today wishing that you could be as you once were. That time is gone, unfortunately. It's past. You're not going to get it back. But what you do have is today. And the only time that you can make change is now, is today. And there's a lot of power in that. There's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of things that you could do with your today instead of thinking about something that's already gone. All you are is here and now. And if you make a change, now's the time. So point number 2 of what I needed to hear. Your problems won't go anywhere if you turn away from them. So people like to say skeletons in your closet. If you think about it, if you're in a room with those skeletons who are in that closet, if you turn away and face the other wall, they're not going anywhere. They're still there. They're still in that closet, but they're still just as bad and just as ugly as you left them when you turned around. It's just when you do turn around, they'll be exactly as the same. You might have changed. You might have done different things and seen different people and this, that, and the other, but they'll still be there. But what I can say from my own experience is the more that you do look at them, the more that you do try and understand them, the less imposing, scary, and difficult they are. The more you kind of take that veil of unknown from this thing which you're afraid of, the more you get to know it, the more you recognise it, the easier it is to understand, and the less scary it becomes. It might be painful, taking this thing which you were afraid of, recognising it, looking it in the eye and understanding it, but I promise the only thing that can come from that is growth. And you can heal from that thing. It doesn't define you. Number 3, it's okay to be afraid. Whether your fear is rational or irrational, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make you weak, and it doesn't make you less of a person. We're all afraid, and I'm man enough to admit that I get scared all the fucking time. Honestly, I still do. If it's any consolation, I've been trying to improve myself for about 5 years. Fear remains rational. Fear remains relative. So whatever it is that you're doing, that fear reaction is going to be the same. So if you decide to say, no, fuck this, not having anything to do with it, and stay in an isolated life for 5 years. So if I had done that, if I'd not changed anything, that fear would still be there. But from where I started to where I am now, I still have that. It's still there. But it's that choice. It's that what you do with that fear. And fear isn't something to be afraid of. Like, I don't quite understand the concept fully myself. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But the idea of there is nothing to fear but fear itself. I've thought about that recently. I thought, it sounds like absolute bollocks. Why would you be afraid of fear itself? Don't be afraid of it. It's natural. Everyone feels it. All of your heroes, all the people around you, we all get scared. But as I said, it's what you do with that fear that matters. Number 4, you are not a failure. This was a big one for me. I looked over my Steps to Wellbeing paperwork and a couple of the exercise books that I had. Jeez, man, that was like the standout thing that I thought I was a failure. So on the episode of failure, we mentioned about what Kobe Bryant believed, is that no one actually is a failure. Failure doesn't exist. You may not succeed at one thing and consider it a failure, but more than likely you'll get another chance. You'll get to go back to your family. You get to see your friends and still have that loved one. Like getting knocked out in a fight, you can train 8 weeks for a fight, push yourself to the absolute limit, get knocked out. Your family is still there. The people that love you are still there. You get to wake up again tomorrow. Is that really failure? And from not succeeding, more often than not, that is the best teacher. Yeah, we're all a work in progress. Perfection, I personally don't believe exists. It's a concept. Perfection is an ideal, but not a destination. You're never going to be perfect. You don't want to be perfect. We all make mistakes, and that's okay. We're all in the same boat. We all do stupid shit. We all do shit we don't mean to do. So we're all alike in that regard. Life isn't black and white. It's complicated and intricate and nuanced, and it's unknowable, and that's what makes it beautiful. No one, regardless of who you are, has the right to tell you, like, you're a failure. You have not succeeded. Everything that you have done for nothing. You suck. You fail. Like, no, no one has that power or capacity. No one person is higher than the other to have the right to do that. If we're talking about gods, that is different, but that's not a conversation that we're having right now. Yeah, don't worry about it. The failures that you think that you're going through now and the failure that you think you are, it's probably a defining hour in your life. You'll probably look back at it and think, yeah, those were times that helped you to become who you are now. So don't be too hard on yourself. You're not a failure. You're a work in progress. And lastly, on you're not a failure, try just being yourself for a while. Let go of the idea of success, of failure, of black and white, of right and wrong. Take a couple hours off and spend some time finding out, practicing, or simply just enjoying the person that you are. So fuck the rest, fuck all of that. It doesn't matter. What do I want to do? What do I feel like doing? Who am I? What do I enjoy? And just enjoy being yourself doing that. Like I said, not everything's cut and dry. You're allowed to be who you are at this present moment, regardless of whether you think you're doing well or not doing well. But it isn't quite so final as you may think. Number 5, you're not alone. Not everybody needs to know exactly what is going on in your life or how you feel to understand and be there for you. I've spoken about this before on the podcast, but my mum, she did herself to bits because she didn't know how to be there for me. She didn't know what I was going through. No, that was it. She said a while later that if I'd known what I'd known now, I'd have been able to help you so much more. And I said that was okay. I didn't need her to understand and to completely relate to what it was I was feeling. So I said to her, all that I would ever need you to do is to love me and to be there for me. And she was. The people around you don't have to fully get it. Like, it's okay if they don't. They don't need to know to be there for you. They don't need to know to love you. If what you're going through is something that is highly personal to you, then it may be that the onus is on you to help get yourself out of that or to do something about it. But they still love you just the same, and they're still there for you just the same. And sometimes giving them permission to be that for you is something that will make a great difference. There are others that are just like you. Although you feel alone, although you feel completely isolated in this terrible darkness, there are other people out there. There are other people who know how you feel. The circumstances might not be the same, but they get it. They get it. They know what it's like. And for me, that was quite empowering to know that, because that gave me a sense of kinship, knowing that I wasn't alone, knowing that there are others out there, and that I'm not this complete freak of human nature. No, that makes it sound positive. I wasn't this complete freak who felt wrong and incomplete and broken, and that other people feel like that as well. That's something to think about. There's always someone to speak to, whether it's your family, whether it's your friends, whether it's a stranger, or all of that failing. You have people like the Samaritans, you have people like we spoke about in the last episode, and you have people who you will be able to find in the description of this video or podcast, Spotify thing. There's always someone to speak to. Please don't ever think that you don't have an option, because there's always an option and there's always an alternative. And you are not a burden. You're not weighing anybody down. You're going through some shit at the moment, and that's okay. But don't think that just because you're struggling at the moment that you're a burden on other people. Likelihood is people are just having to adapt who they are to accommodate the way that you are. And that's not a problem. You know, we're all going through some shit, whether it be now, last year, 10 decades ago. Most people understand. It's okay. So we kind of touched on this, but the last thing that I would say to myself, if I could, or the lessons that I learned, was that the only person that can truly change things for you is you. My own experience, doctors, friends, family, therapists, counsellors, all did the utmost to their capacity, whether it be as a family member, a friend, or as a professional. They all did the best that they could. They all did the most that they could. But I was wondering, why isn't anything changing? Why has nothing changed? Nothing did change until I decided that I wanted to make that change. That sounds tough. But after a while, after I did recognise that and I did start it, it became incredibly empowering. Because that change, that recognition of change can build momentum. I went from being a complete nothing of a person to thinking, now that I'm going, who do I want to become? Who do I want to change myself into? Change this thing that I've got, this thing which I can now harness. What do I want to do with it? Who do I want to become? Where do I want to go? And feeling that, after feeling the way that I did, being liberated from that and getting this kind of new lease on life that I could create myself anew, it was incredibly empowering. But don't rely solely on other people to help you get out of your situation, because the only person that can truly do it is yourself. So we haven't had one of these for a while, but I've got a challenge for you, or a task, or a little bit of a homework. It's nothing major. You're not going to have to talk to anybody else. But I've come to really like this idea over the past 6 months. I don't know if it's official or not. Probably should. But it's called a darkest hour friend. And the idea of a darkest hour friend, it comes from, Winston Churchill's Darkest Hour. In your hour of need, in your hour of peril, who would be there for you? Being that darkest hour friend means that in somebody else's, in a member of family's darkest hour, in a friend's darkest hour, you're there for them. When everything seems bleak, when everything's gone for fail, it's the storming of the Normandy beaches. Who in that hour are you there for? And that's the task. I want you to have a think about. You don't have to tell them, you don't have to do anything, but look at the people around you, look at the people that you surround yourself with, and just have a think of those people. Who would you be there for when they really needed you the most? And just keep that in your back pocket. Know that, because you never do know. You never know what's going on in someone's private life, behind closed doors, or wherever it is. So it always helps to know, if and when the time comes, who you are willing to be there for. You don't have to be there for everybody. It would be probably quite exhaustive if you were trying to be there for everybody and anybody all the time. So it's okay to have a select few, but just have a think to yourself, who are you the darkest hour friend for? And that's going to wrap it up for today's episode. It was difficult planning this episode because I had to get pretty real with myself. But I'm glad I did it. Hopefully it can do something for somebody. And if not, then I hope somebody who's listening to this might be able to use something and use some of the things which really helped me in retrospect when I needed it the most. And hopefully that might be able to help you get in touch with somebody or get through to someone. Thank you for listening. If you've made it to the end of the episode, we greatly appreciate you and everything that you're doing to help us keep this going. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day, and please take care of yourself. This has been a Common Bird production.